rolling tumors to roaring lampooners, the Tigers on a Roll show starts in 3, 2, 1.
War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another episode of Tigers on a Roll. And I hope that you had a lovely Thanksgiving with some good food and much needed R&R going into the holiday season. But it is the Iron Bowl weekend. It is Iron Bowl Eve. And I promised a big show today since we haven't had one since just before the holiday. If you're wondering why, I was traveling and then had to take a trip to the emergency room night before Thanksgiving, which is certainly unfortunate. But we wanted to make sure that we had something for you today, and we will definitely have something for you the day after, or the post game. So day of the game, we were going to have a morning and afternoon show, which is great for us, great for you guys. And besides the Iron Bowl, we're fresh off the plane from the Players Era tournament in Vegas. Pearl says that his guys got some much needed nationally televised stress tests and 3 consecutive days of high flying action against teams who you will see in March. And we saw some certainly soaring highs against Oregon and a very harsh reality check against Michigan. But then had a redemption story against St. John's, which is so great for the boys. And I want to note against Michigan, Auburn's loss, it looked bad in the box score. It did. It was awful. But it was the closest game that anyone played to Michigan all week in Vegas. So, I mean, it was by no means a disaster. The week wasn't, and the Michigan game wasn't either. The Michigan game was not either. But if you watch those games, you know that it was a tale of 2 Auburn teams, which, first the good Auburn team, beating Oregon was a thing of beauty. Beating St. John's was great. And it felt great against Oregon to kick a trip off with a win. And we've been waiting all season. Big game Hod to show up. And he arrived. He arrived with that plane to Vegas. Not going through a sophomore slump like some folks had said, and he kicked down the door in that game against Oregon with 24 points. He was aggressive, he was efficient, and he played with that downhill speed that we know makes him a nightmare to guard. And the team itself shot 83% from the stripe. And after the struggles that we saw against Houston and some other games early in the season, them knocking down those free throws with consistency is a huge relief, because you are absolutely going to need that going into SEC play. But then Tuesday night happened, man. 102-72 loss to Michigan, who looks like a legit team. They do. They look like a legit team. They are a legit team. But letting anyone put up 100 points on you is never acceptable for Auburn basketball. And there were some glaring concerns that came out of the Michigan game that people had already been murmuring about in some of those better matchups early in the season with some bigger opponents on the court. And it was bad against Michigan, man. The Wolverines got whatever they wanted. They got it in the paint. They got open threes. They got transition buckets, and we just looked slow and late on rotations. We had no answer for the physicality inside. And we had a season low assists in the game. I think we had 3 in the first half total. The ball stopped moving. Auburn just couldn't do it. And it became hero ball. And against a team like Michigan, that will just absolutely not work. And it did not work. But most worrying, I think, was the physical domination on the inside. Really, we were unable to do anything off the glass. Michigan's size bothered us really bad, and that is a huge concern going into SEC play. As I've said, after the first post game for the Players Era stuff, the SEC, the teams only get bigger and faster. So if Michigan bothered us that bad, you might not be putting together the most impressive SEC resume, because we are going to need to figure out how to play with the size that we do have and the speed that we do have, and hang around teams that have size like Michigan, which, if I'm not mistaken, Michigan had 3 players that they started that are 6'10" or taller, and 250 something pounds. They got a whole tight end room in that, in their starting rotation. So, that's kind of just that. But Auburn got redemption against the 14th ranked St. John's basketball team. I mean, you'll take that with 24 hours after getting your head kicked in by Michigan. You go out and you win 85-74 against a top 15 team. And granted, Auburn was down 11 points early in the second half. Their legs looked heavy, a little tired, probably, feeling down on themselves from the Michigan game. But, instead of folding, they flipped the switch, and Auburn ended up outscoring St. John's 55-35 in that second half of their final game in Vegas. Tahad showed up so huge in that third and final game, and he was magnificent, and he dropped a career-high 27 points in that game. He took down over the stretch. Hall was also a huge factor, specifically inside. He seemed like he was kind of trying to refuse to get pushed around after getting manhandled against Michigan. So, I think that Auburn against St. John's looked like a completely different team, and I was personally very impressed watching it unfold live. Just the sheer amount of effort that they were laying on the floor to mount a comeback. Like I said, they easily could have folded, but they absolutely did not. And Auburn held a high-scoring St. John's team to 2 field goals in the last 8 minutes. I mean, absolutely incredible stuff from them. They showed a lot of heart and grit, and I know that that's probably going to be the story of a lot of these games this season. But, turning around and having that game pop up so close to the terrible showing against Michigan is just so big for Auburn. And speaking of turnarounds, obviously they're playing. They got to turn around. They got to get back to Auburn, and they got to play their season out, man. Like the Players Era tournament didn't really go that well for us for a lot of reasons. One of them is the way that they score those games and the point differentials and things like that. It's a very weird format they have, but Auburn's got to get back to it. And the team back in Auburn. And the next few days are going to be really, really interesting around that basketball facility. We know Stephen Pearl is his father's son, but he's also his own coach. He has his background as a defensive coordinator, I think came through, and based on his comments this week, I can tell you that those guys are going straight back to the basics when they get back in the gym this weekend after the holiday wraps up and before their next game. And I'd expect a really intense full court, defensive slide drills, keeping the ball handler out in front of you without fouling, timing better when the guard should be leaking. And then I think that they're going to have to work on getting the ball to touch the paint and then kick it back out. They're going to be doing one more pass. You'll probably see it in the very next game too. Is one more. I mean, those are the things that they have to work on. Those are the things that Michigan absolutely, unveiled. They pierced the veil there for Auburn and exposed them a little bit. But I mean, I'm sure that's Stevens got them doing that when they're back in the gym, and we'll see, if you can get back to the basics and you can reset, it's one of the best things that you can do for your team, especially early in the season like it is. And they're going to have to reset because Steven was visibly frustrated with the selfishness that he saw on offense, at least against Michigan. And it's kind of, you don't want your team resorting to those kinds of like selfish hero ball plays when things start to get intense, because you just got to keep trudging through with the guys that you have on the court with you, or else you're going to start playing really, really sloppy. So I bet you they get back, they get a reset, and they'll get back to that unselfish culture that they're known for, and that we know Auburn basketball, to be used to. But they've got to get it cleaned up fast, and the schedule does not get any easier for Auburn basketball. So we will see what Coach Pearl does as the head coach of this Auburn basketball team and how they respond to their West Coast swing, I guess you could call it. And before we get into the Iron Bowl preview, let's get a word from our sponsors. Brahma Marketing is your one-stop shop for everything from signs and apparel to high-impact vehicle wraps. As a certified 3M graphics company, they guarantee quality and durability. They've partnered with Graystar Real Estate, Prisma Health, HD Supply, and more. Stop blending in and start standing out. Visit brahmamarketing.com to get started on your next project. War Eagle from the Orlando Auburn Club. Are you an Auburn alum or fan living in the Orlando area? This is more than just a club. It's your official connection to the Auburn family right here in Central Florida. The club hosts watch parties and networking events for past, current, and future Tigers and their families. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and online at orlandooburnclub.org. And I'll tell you right now, for the Orlando Auburn Club, they are going to have a great watch party tomorrow at Gators Dockside in Baldwin Park. If you are in the Orlando area, Daytona, St. Pete, it doesn't matter, anywhere in Central Florida, and you're passing through Orlando, I would highly recommend stopping for the Iron Bowl watch party. But all right, speaking of, it is Iron Bowl week. I mean, come on. This is what we look forward to. Records get thrown out the window. Strange things happen in Jordan-Hare. You know all the cliches. But we're going to take a look at this reality. Auburn is 5-6, and a win gets us to a bowl game for the first time in 3 years. It ruins Alabama's playoff positioning. And it would be so huge for DJ to hang his hat on as an accomplishment during his time as Auburn's interim coach. And I guess I've gotten a lot of questions on the DMs and whatnot on Twitter. It's like, how do you see the Tigers coming out victorious? Well, I'll tell you. I mean, these are 3 or 4 things of what I think Auburn can do to beat Bama, because I think Bama's very gettable. Oklahoma did it. I mean, everyone's buzzing about Deuce. I have been. An electric 6-touchdown performance for Deuce against Mercer showed us that his ground game is groundbreaking. But of course, Durkin, which we all saw coming, Durkin announced on Monday that Ashton Daniels was going to start the Iron Bowl, which the only reason he sat for Mercer was to preserve his red shirt. We all know that story. And I think that's the right call. Daniels provides stability and composure at the most important position in the biggest game of the season, and I don't think Auburn needs to be rolling out QB packages since their games are very similar to begin with, and Ashton's got the experience. But I would not be surprised to see Deuce, get something in the red zone if we are not capitalizing early on those opportunities, in the red area. And you certainly, you do that because you don't want to leave a weapon like Deuce Knight on the bench. But I'm not sure that we've ever seen it really work outside of, 2012, maybe 13. You don't leave a weapon on that bench, and you don't want to mix up the continuity if it's not necessary. The key for the staff is to figure out if they will be able to blend Daniel's knowledge and Knight's explosiveness without disrupting the rhythm of the offense in general. And forget the offense in general, the game script on both sides of the ball, because you've got to watch tomorrow. You've got to watch Alabama's receivers against Auburn secondary and how they respond to the types of things that the Auburn offense is doing. Because if you have been watching this season, you've seen Auburn burn out their defense, who up until about a week or two ago was like the 3rd best defense in the country. Auburn's offense was inefficient and the defense was on the field too long. we need to put that into perspective because Ryan Williams has struggled this season. He has struggled with consistency, and Jeremy Bernard is good. They're both good receivers, and Auburn's secondary has been hit or miss. They need to stay fresh. They need to stay together in terms of in terms of unity and focus on the goal at hand, because they are going for 60 minutes are going to need to stay sticky with the guys that are on the other side of the ball wearing crimson. Well, they're probably wearing white, but crimson helmets, and it'll make their life a lot easier if you can generate pressure up front, stay sticky on the perimeters, and then have your offense burn clock and score. I said it already on the podcast with Walker. We have got to force Ty Simpson to move off of his spot. And over the last few weeks, you've seen him be prone to turnovers. And I think if we can get him uncomfortable, you force a turnover or two, and that is the difference in the game. Because when we have a guy on the outside to answer, the guys they have, Ryan Williams, whatever, Jeremy Bernard, Cam Coleman will make plays with the ball in his hand. And he will win the 50-50 balls, especially in a game where I think that you need to score 30 plus to win it. Cam's incorporation is going to be the difference maker. Auburn's run defense is good. It's one of the best in the country under Durkin, and Alabama has not been committed to moving it on the ground. They've been committed to moving it through the air. So all I think that we need to do is stop the run when they try to move the ball on the ground to pick up small yard. Like, they're probably going to be third and short, and you stop them, you get ball back. And I think if you can make them a one-dimensional offense, Alabama, make them a one-dimensional offense, they will struggle to stay consistent against a rested Auburn team if we can provide that for our defense. And it sounds simple. And I kind of bumped around stream of consciousness there, but it sounds simple. Bama's been prone to mistakes. They have on the road and over the last couple of weeks. They freaking turned it over against Eastern Illinois. We need at least 2 takeaways. And even if he doesn't start, I think Deuce Knight needs 5 to 10 touches because his legs are an equalizer against a defense that plays as fast as Bama. And how about this? And I know I mentioned Cam, but Cam's a difference maker every game. How about this? The crowd is a key to victory for us. The crowd, if you're going to the game, it is going to be electric. It always is. The first night game in Jordan-Hare Stadium in like 15 years for the Iron Bowl. Auburn's got to start fast to keep the fans in it, but the fans, the jungle, needs to stay in it no matter how it's going because it gives you the home field advantage. The jungle will be so important to keep the voodoo that everyone talks about in Jordan-Hare. It is going to be so important to keep the voodoo in the stadium to disrupt anything that Bama wants to do and how they want to operate. And I said on the pod the other day, I said, I think Auburn wins this. I know that I said that they score 30 points. I can't remember if I said that Alabama scored 21 or 24, but Auburn can win this game. And I still think they can win it 30-21. Vegas has Bama as a 6-point favorite right now. The experts are calling for a tied victory. They're calling for it somewhere in the range of 27-20, which I'm just flipping it on its head. My heart wants to pick the upset. I think the emotion of the interim coach being there, the night game atmosphere for the Iron Bowl, and Auburn's nothing to lose mentality keeps this one close. And I think we see a heavy dose of run game and maybe a couple trick plays. And Auburn ends up dominating time of possession, gets in the end zone, is efficient, and goes out there and wins the damn Iron Bowl. This is the most important game on Auburn and Alabama's schedule. Do not let a Bammer tell you any differently. This is the game to look forward to. Everyone is going to show up, fans and players and coaches alike. And I think Auburn has the juice for it. I am sticking with my score prediction. Tigers on top. Absolutely. And speaking of teams on top, let's do this before we get out of here. Let's run through the rest of the SEC slate because it's rivalry week, man, and we are not the only people that look forward to these games. Auburn, Alabama may be the biggest game in the country every year, but it is rivalry week for every school. And I'm going to give you my outright winners for each matchup this weekend. Let's see here. All right, you've got Texas A&M, Texas. The Aggies are slight favorites right now, and their defense is legit. And I think that they spoil the Longhorns party in Austin. Texas is kind of falling out of favor right now with CFP voters and whatnot. It seems like to me, and I think A&M's a better team here. Then we got Georgia Tech. Tech always fights really hard, but it's Georgia. The Dogs are in postseason form, and I think that UGA's got this one under lockdown. I don't think Georgia Tech's really all that dangerous to them or what they are planning to do over the next month. We've got Clemson at South Carolina. The Gamecocks are favorites in Williams-Brice, and I think Clemson's struggling, and I don't know that Dabo's bought in as much as he used to, and I don't think his players are necessarily all that bought into Clemson's vision right now. So they're struggling, and I think USC takes this one at home. And we've got Kentucky at Louisville. I mean, Kentucky, rich coming from us, I guess, from me, but, Kentucky's the worst team in the SEC. Louisville's the favorite here. The Governor's Cup is always a grind for both these teams. And I don't think the Wildcats can hang around in this one. I think Louisville takes this one. And we will get to Florida State, Florida. Both teams have had rough years. Vegas likes Florida by 1.5 points, but I'm calling an upset here. I think the Seminoles have a little bit more fight left in them. I think Gus Malzahn brings something with him to Gainesville and beats the Gators to bookend their season with victories. And you know what? Maybe be retained. I know that they just extended to HC. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Gus, but they have not had a good year. So we'll see what we do with that. But I think that Gus and that offense ends up getting a win in Gainesville for the Seminoles. And then we got Vandy, Tennessee. Vandy's scrappy. I mean, they are. You got to give them credit, but Neyland Stadium is a different animal. Different animal, and Tennessee could have had a much better season than they did, losing some close ones early on, especially that Georgia game. And give me Tennessee here. Absolutely. Tennessee over Vandy, and hopefully Diego Pavia goes on and gets a job somewhere and gives up on college football or goes to Canada and plays in the CFL or something. But I think Vandy loses their last regular season game to Tennessee. And I also think Vandy probably misses out on Jared Curtis, but we will see about that. And then LSU, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a big favorite at home in this one, and LSU looks ready for the season to be over with. They are ready to check out and pack their bags and go on winter break. So I'm taking the Sooners here. I don't think it's a question. I think Oklahoma's ramping up again. They want to get to the postseason. They want to make a statement after a few close games early in the season. But yeah, LSU. I don't think LSU can hang in there with them. And then we got the Egg Bowl, the hottest game on Friday afternoon. But no jokes about that. That's a lot of talk about Lane sticking around, not sticking around. He was supposed to have some sort of comment by now on whether or not he's staying at Ole Miss. Obviously, Mississippi State is going to try to capitalize on all of the tumultuous situation that is happening over at Ole Miss. But Kiffin's offense is just too much. It's too much for the Bulldogs. Trinidad Chambliss looks good. I'm taking the Rebels on top in this one. And then we've got the last rivalry week matchup that we've got in the SEC, the Battle Line rivalry, which is always a fun one that I don't know that everyone always tunes into. You should. Any rivalry game with a name is always a good one. This one is Mizzou versus Arkansas. And like I said, it'll be fun, but Mizzou has the better weapons. There's no question, I think, right now that Missouri beats the Razorbacks tomorrow afternoon. And folks, thank you for sticking with me on this 25-minute episode. I told you it was going to be a big one. That is it for today, folks. Whether you're watching in Jordan-Hare, a tailgate on the green space, or your living room with the family, please enjoy the Iron Bowl. Enjoy the game. Stay safe out there. Do not take any impromptu trips to the ER. And do not let Auburn live up to the Cardiac Cats name this Saturday. It's the best rivalry in sports for a reason. Drop your predictions down in the comments, down here in the comments. Tag us on X, whatever you think it is that this game's going to turn out like, or if you want to just start a convo or continue a conversation over on X, please do. I am always over there. And like and share this video. If you would do that, I'd appreciate it. And I'd also recommend subscribing because if you've made it this far, I appreciate you. I have got some good insight from someone who lives in the same house as someone that is BOT at AU. And you're going to want to probably be subscribed to the channel as it relates to the coaching search. I think that there is some real motion happening as early as Sunday morning, or even right after the Iron Bowl. So that might get loose soon. And like I said, as soon as the game ends, even potentially, which is great news for Auburn. And I will plan on covering that as long as we make it back down south after the holiday. I plan on being there for the Iron Bowl. So you know what? Hopefully we'll be also near the real studio and not our makeshift holiday, room and board that we're working with right now. But folks, until then, stay safe, enjoy your leftovers, and War Eagle, I will see you.